Right. So me, like I'm a fun, like I love having fun. It's
Okay.
in my DNA. I come from a long line of people that love to have fun. In
Mhm.
Nigeria, we call it jaye, which means those who love to
Oh, I
live
love
life.
that.
Jaye, jaye, that is it. Life to be lived. My ancestors, my grandparents, my great grandparents, they were all people who love,
Yeah.
they worked hard, don't get me wrong, and they
Yeah.
pushed, but they love life and live life to the max. So me and my siblings, we're all like, I like a bit of a dance. I like a nice meal where someone says, "Hello, can I take your coat?" I'm like, "Yes, we're here."
Hello, 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 hello. Oh, this is the first time I'm speaking for today. So I'm just testing out my voice, which is a lot better. Definitely getting there. Hello, my name is Karen Arthur, and welcome to Menopause Whilst Black, season 6 of the podcast. Goodness me. And this is episode 3. I'm thrilled to be here. I spent a week. Um, Half of it in bed, actually, trying to rest my voice. It went completely at one point, but I am back. I am your host for Menopause Whilst Black, the podcast, which is committed to sharing the stories of Black women, Black people in any stage of menopause, primarily based in the UK. And as I said, welcome to episode 3. How are you enjoying them so far? Have you listened to episodes 1 and 2? Have you listened to season 5? Have you been here from the beginning? I know quite a few of you have. And how are you listening to us? Are you sitting in your kitchen? Are you in your living room? Are you out and about? Are you running? I know a few of you are as well. Um, However, you take in these words, I am so thrilled and happy and grateful that you're here. So I just want to say thank you, first of all. And also, if you haven't already, have a look at the YouTube channel, Menopause Whilst Black. Subscribe, follow, and what I'd really love is for you to give us a review on the platform that you find Menopause Black Whilst Black, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, Podbean, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast fix. Give us a review. It really, really helps us. Okay, that's enough of me rambling at the beginning because you're not here for me. You are here for my next guest. So without further ado, I will let you sit back or power forward or whatever you're doing and listen to the episode. And I will come back, see you on the other side. Enjoy. Welcome to season 6 of Menopause Whilst Black, the podcast that is committed to sharing the stories of Black people experiencing menopause, primarily based in the UK. My name is Karen Arthur. I will probably do another introduction to myself again before this, but I want to introduce our first guest. First of all, apologies. I'm a little bit flustered. I need to take a deep breath because we've had some tech issues. This seems to be my life at the moment. But I'm very, very grateful to my guest, Dr. Itunu Johnson Shoberton, for bearing with me. So, Dr. Itunu is a portfolio general practitioner with over a decade of experience in both the National Health Service and the private sector. Specialising in women's health, sexual and reproductive health, and menopause care, she is a member of the British Menopause Society, actively involved in the RCGP North West London Faculty Board. She leads initiatives promoting equality, diversity, and inclusion. Dr. Johnson Shobberton's advocacy extends to her role in the Rock My Menopause Committee within the Primary Care Women's Health Forum. She passionately champions health equity, notably through the Heal Courses initiative, addressing health issues affecting the Black community. Beyond her clinical practice, Dr. Johnson Shobberton serves as a GP tutor and examiner at Queen Mary's University of London Medical School. She embodies a holistic approach to healthcare, bringing a wealth of experience and passion to her multifaceted roles. Itunu, Dr. Itunu, thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you so much. That's so kind. When you're reading that out, I'm like, wait, who's that?
Honestly, I have said this before. When I first started this podcast back in, what are we, 2020, I would always read the bio after the guest had gone, so I'd do it separately. But when I decided to start reading it out so that my guests could hear the amazing, life that they've lived and things that they're offering, it's the expression on your face. And we need to celebrate ourselves more. We need to hear that more. I feel like we do affirmations or, that kind of thing. We should read our bio out as an affirmation every morning, but we never do this. Oh, goodness me. So, am I calling you Dr. Itunu? Am I calling you Itunu? Am I calling you
You are
Queen?
calling me Itunu. That's
Lovely.
absolutely fine. Please, Itunu. That's what my mama named me.
I love that. So relaxed. Beautiful. So, let's start. Who are you, Itunu, outside your title?
So I am a wife and mother in North London. I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm a sister as well. Um, you know, a Black woman trying to figure out life in 2024, doing all these things, but trying to make an impact on equitable healthcare for women and also for our community, the Black community.
I love that. And I know this, but what's your heritage? Where are your parents from?
So my parents are Nigerian. I think of myself as Nigerian as well because I was born there.
Hmm.
I moved to the UK aged 15 to boarding school actually.
Hmm.
And I just kind of never left.
And you said,
So
yeah, go on.
sorry, carry on.
You said you're based in North London. How old are you? You don't have to tell me.
I am 36 years
Oh,
old.
all right. So who taught you about menopause?
Good question. So you see, my mum actually had breast cancer in her 30s. We eventually found out there's actually the BRCA gene in the family, which is obviously a separate conversation. But that meant that she had treatment, which led to her having an early menopause.
Right.
So I remember that conversation when I was growing up. It wasn't too deep, but it was an acknowledgement that mom, you know, was menopausal
Mm.
early on. So she was menopausal before she was 40.
Wow.
Um, because of the treatment. So that I guess was my first. So I would have been, in my early teens, so 11, 12, around that kind of age. So that was my first understanding of menopause. And then obviously I became a doctor, became a clinician, and started to learn more about menopause and found it extremely fascinating. And then as I started to do the work, um, I just began to understand that menopause is so complicated. And I
Mm.
think of it as so in medical school, we were taught about the bio, the psycho, the social interaction. And menopause encompasses that so well because obviously there's the biological things that are going on with the hormone deficiency, but often there's psychology, complex psychology that's associated with it, how the woman views herself, stresses, traumas, all of those things.
Mm.
And then also what's going on in their lives. We know that many women are in that sandwich generation where they're caring for multiple generations.
Yeah.
So that complexity of it, I'm someone who loves the gray. I love the complex.
Mm.
And so that made me think, yes, this is interesting and important work. I was taught about menopause. We weren't actually taught that much in undergraduate training.
Yeah,
And before I trained as a GP, I actually did medicine, which is like internal medicine, so hospital work.
yeah,
And I have to say, my knowledge about menopause at that time was also still very, very, very little.
yeah.
And in fact, but the one thing I did notice were that there were these they had a name for it in
Mm.
like amongst doctors. It wasn't very kind,
Yeah.
but it was like women coming in with all over body pain,
Oh,
and
right.
they would tend to be women, ethnic minority women,
Yeah,
um, and it would be very difficult to actually pin down what was wrong with them. And they would often be repeat visitors to the
yeah,
hospital, to A&E,
yeah,
or to clinics. And
yeah,
there would be a variety of symptoms.
yeah,
But when you were looking for medical causes, and I don't think anyone was really thinking menopause. We weren't necessarily finding it. And some people then considered those people to be more kind of problematic patients.
yeah,
Um, you know, and so at the time I did recognize, I'm like, what is this about particularly women of color coming in with these and usually, over 40 in their 50s and so on,
mm,
coming in with this cacophony of symptoms.
yeah,
And it was later on when I started doing my GP training that I then started actually getting actual teaching on
yeah,
menopause that, reflecting back, made me think,
yes,
light bulb,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
So are we actually not picking up menopausal symptoms appropriately in women of color because they don't present in a more typical way, and they present in different ways?
mm,
And, that got me interested in menopause care,
yeah,
as in equitable menopause care as well, which is obviously one of my passions.
yeah. And you said that your mother went into was had surgical menopause. How did that affect you in terms of, where you were thinking about your own menopause? Like you watched your mother, you saw her, you experienced what she was going through. How did that make you feel about your own journey in the future? Because how old were you when she went through menopause?
So I was 10 when she was diagnosed with the cancer. So I think it was actually the chemotherapy that induced the
Yeah.
menopause. So she was, and then she was on tamoxifen after that.
Yeah.
So it was all of that that caused the menopausal symptoms. Um, so I was 10. So
Mm.
I would have been around 12, 13. She was actually fairly lucky with her symptoms in that they weren't as dramatic. But I think it was just the knowledge that I personally then had this knowledge that maybe I don't have that much time in terms of my fertility window.
Mm.
And we know that Black women have an earlier menopause. I mean, hers was obviously exceptionally early,
Yeah.
but we know that Black women have an earlier menopause than our white counterparts. And that then means that we have a shorter fertility window.
Yeah.
And there's this kind of disparity where we have higher fertility rates much younger, but we then have the increased infertility
Mhm.
in sort of 30s to 40s time. And we think that the fact that we're likely to have earlier menopause impacts that.
Where are you on your menopause journey? Are you on your menopause journey?
So I'm still having my periods,
Mm.
well, ish.
Okay.
So I've had quite a few women's health challenges.
Okay.
So I've had polycystic ovarian syndrome since I was 19, and that's contributed to an infertility journey. Um, but I'm blessed. I'm managed to have one child. I
Mm.
lost twins, but I managed to have one child. So I started having bleeding in between my periods, and then I discovered that I've got endometrial hyperplasia, which is an overgrowth of the womb lining,
Mm.
um, which was at the time atypical. So it was kind of like a precancerous lesion in my womb, which is a potential complication of polycystic ovarian syndrome that many people don't know about. But
Mm.
that meant that I've had to have a few operations to remove that womb lining. And then I've had to have a Mirena coil and be put on progesterone to
Mm.
kind of stop me having bleeds.
Mm.
There has been conversation about me having my womb out.
Wow.
Um, and that's a conversation that I'm still so because I'm still mulling about whether I want to have a second baby.
Yeah.
It's something that I wanted. I wanted my son to have a sibling.
Mm.
Pregnancy was not easy for me. So I'm still mulling, let's just put it that way. And I'm trying to figure out, so that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
But at the moment, with the medications that I'm on, I don't have periods,
Mm.
because the progesterone is stopping me having periods. But if I didn't have them, I would still. So so there is a possibility that I might have to have, um, definitely once I complete my family, I have been advised that I would need to have a hysterectomy, and probably at that point I would take out my ovaries. So the likelihood of me having an early surgical menopause is high.
Yeah. I want to thank you for sharing that. You shared a lot. And that's, that's a very personal story. And it sounds like you've been through a lot as well. Um, and these are huge decisions that we don't take lightly. And so, obviously I understand that the clock is ticking, but the other side to that is you want to make the decision that's best for you and for your body. And so I appreciate that you're taking your time because these things are important. Um, if it's okay, I'd like to take, because you mentioned two quite major things that have happened to you. I wanted to ask you around what your symptoms were. How did what was going on? I think a lot of people listening to this podcast are really also interested in, well, how do I know that something is wrong? Often something is wrong, but we don't realize it, or we soldier on, or we don't want to go to the doctor because we don't want to be dismissed, or because it's long and getting time off is difficult. So, what would you say to women who are listening to? Maybe you could go over some of the symptoms that came from both, of the events that happened to you.
So, with the polycystic ovarian syndrome, at the time, I think it was just struggling with weight gain. I was still quite young at the time.
Mm.
So at that time, my periods were still fairly regular, but they
Mm.
did become irregular over time. Um, but the main thing that I had felt at the time was, struggling with weight gain. I think there was also mood symptoms as well.
Mm.
Um, we often don't talk about the relationship between polycystic ovarian syndrome and mood. And I wouldn't have recognized that at the time just because I didn't have a lot of the knowledge and um, that I have now.
Mm.
But there was that. A lot of women also struggle with acne, hair in places that it shouldn't be, which is
Yeah.
something that I have struggled with at points in my life
Yes.
as well. And, my weight has always been a challenge. And that's something that I'm still working on.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when would you advise, I suppose anybody who is listening and is going through some of those things that they recognize some of the things that you've mentioned, it would be a time to at least, go to the doctors or go and speak to somebody
Absolutely.
about it.
So if you have any questions about polycystic ovarian syndrome, go and see a doctor. And remember, you don't have to have cysts on your ovaries to have polycystic ovarian syndrome. There's three categories, only one of which is having cysts on your ovaries. Having excess male androgen hormone and having symptoms like the excess hair growth like on your chin or on your chest and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and irregular periods are enough to have that diagnosis. And we know that Black women are disproportionately affected. With endometrial hyperplasia, this is something that I cannot overstate,
Mm.
is that if you're having irregular bleeding, which is bleeding in between periods like I had, or bleeding with intercourse, you must get it checked out. That is not normal, and it must be checked out. I actually started noticing, because I was a bit naughty. I started noticing the bleeding in between periods in May, and I thought, I'm a doctor, but I was just like, maybe it's just settled. Maybe it's a bit of hormonal
Right. So
instability.
even you do
But
the thing,
even me, I
even though
was
you're a
naughty.
doctor. Yeah.
Even though I was a doctor, I was naughty and I left it from May to October.
Mm.
So imagine my complete shock when I
Yeah.
was told, oh, it's a precancerous lesion. I was like, what?
Wow.
Um, so imagine if I had left it longer,
Yeah.
thankfully they were able to take it out. And now I'm monitored every 6 months.
Mm.
But it's again, let's not take risks with our health.
Yeah.
Um, if something's not right, get it checked out.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. You specialize in menopause. I love that. I want more of that for us. I often speak to women. In fact, I spoke to a good friend yesterday who had been to her doctor's, a family doctor. So she trusts that woman, and she's, in my opinion, she's perimenopausal. And I said to her, what did the doctor say? And the doctor basically dismissed her and gaslit her and sent her away and said that, you don't need anything, that kind of thing. Um, and that is often the reason why Black women don't want to go to see our doctors, as difficult or, it is to try and get an appointment. And often we're going to the NHS because often there isn't money to be able to go to a clinic or private practice, or we can find much more, many other things to do with our money. What advice is the point of my question? I'll get there in the end. What advice would you give to anybody listening to this that is around helping them to advocate for themselves? We have this white coat syndrome, don't we? We do this thing where, oh, well, they're a doctor. Once they say something, then that's it. What advice would you give to somebody who, you know, around going to the doctor and advocating for themselves?
So I think the first thing is to be persistent.
Mm.
Um, we actually have expertise about our own bodies. We have knowledge that the doctor doesn't have
Mm.
about who we are and what's going on in our bodies.
Yeah.
And so we shouldn't minimize that expertise. If you feel something is wrong and someone hasn't paid attention to what you're saying, be
Yeah.
persistent,
Yeah.
get a second opinion, seek out culturally competent care. Now, hopefully, more and more doctors should be offering culturally competent care. It's something that they're teaching in medical school, certainly something that is being taught at Queen Mary's, where I tutor. And in fact, I tutor on the health equity course, which
Mm.
is trying to educate medical students to have those skill sets.
Yeah.
But, again, this is fairly new.
Yeah.
Many doctors don't understand the experience of people from ethnic minority backgrounds and how that influences their health, and therefore might not take some of the concerns that we're bringing seriously. And this
Mm.
is something that is commonly reported. And that's another reason why we need more representation
Yeah.
within the healthcare profession. and why diversity is really important. And that's work that's ongoing. And I really, I'm the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Lead in Northwest London for the Royal College. And that's something that the college is really pushing.
Good.
But, whilst we're trying to catch up as professionals, with the woman herself, can take can be persistent,
Mm.
seeking validation of her concerns. If you feel like your concerns haven't been addressed, don't stop there.
Yeah.
Find someone who will listen. And that if that means asking to see a different professional, if that means asking to be referred, which is your right to be, if you are feeling like, this is a specialist issue and I don't feel like you are, do you mind referring me for a specialist opinion? So there's lots of things that you can do to take ownership.
Yeah.
But again, educating ourselves, which is why things like what Karen is doing is fantastic, to educate our community so we are more aware of what the issues are. And so we understand the language of the health professional. Health literacy is really important in self-advocacy, because it gives us the language to be able to communicate with healthcare professionals in a way that's more effective.
Yeah. It can be quite daunting for many people going into establishments where, we feel that they have more expertise. It's daunting going as a parent into schools, for example, when you're advocating for your child. There's something about going back into a space that
Mhm.
makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. So it's really helpful and reassuring to hear you say about being persistent and understanding yourself and knowing we know our bodies best. And I'm also very interested in the phrase, which is hard to say, culturally competent care is a beautiful phrase because it encompasses so much. And I know that there are initiatives to bring more people, more representation to the table. I am part of, many, the Health Collective with Dr. Nigar Arif and Professor Joyce Harper is doing some wonderful work as well with UCL. And I feel like the more that we talk about it and the more we have faces who look like us, who are saying, this is what you can do, this is what you're able to do. I'm here for it. So yeah, more of that. And people in Northwest London are very, very lucky to have you.
That's kind of you to say. No, I work all across the city. Well, I work in the center of the city, in central London as well. And I think that one of the things that, I mean, I love Dr. Arif. You mentioned her. She's such an advocate for culturally competent care,
Yeah,
for equitable healthcare, for menopause care. She's for women, and for women of color. She's amazing. And the work that she does is truly a blessing for our various ethnic communities.
yeah,
So it's again sort of empowering women because, like that power imbalance needs to change
yeah,
because we are, yes, as healthcare professionals, experts on the tools in the toolbox, but the patient is the expert
yeah,
on the issue.
yeah,
Does that make sense? What we do is we show these are the tools available in the toolbox, and we then help the patient to make the choice of
yes,
what tools in the toolbox are most relevant for them. So
yeah,
we can't be showing patients only part of the toolbox, and we can't be choosing what parts of the toolbox we show to them. And
yeah,
patient autonomy is really important.
mm,
And that's why a lot of people in our communities feel gaslit and distrust because, that, openness and ability for us to share, as a community, what, our concerns are. Sometimes there's a struggle with that.
mm,
But this is why I would encourage people to feel empowered. You have an absolute right to be able to share your concerns about your body.
Yeah.
And no one is smarter than you or knows better than you about your body. And this is why part of culturally competent care is humility, to be able to listen and validate concerns from the healthcare professional. We're no longer in those days where we had a patrilineal relationship between doctor and patient. Now it's a shared care model.
Yes.
And, in that shared care model, culturally competent care is a very important aspect.
I have never heard that talked about in such a way before, in terms of doctors practicing humility. And it really humanizes the patient doctor relationship. I think that there are, and this is not doctor bashing at all, and I don't want it to come across that way at all, but I hear too many stories from people who have felt intimidated in the face of the person sitting, at the desk, who's got the degrees and done all the education and so on and so forth. And so remembering, yes, the doctor can practice humility and recognize that the person in front of them is also a human being who is worried and wants to get the best care for them. So I really appreciate you bringing that word onto the table, because I've not thought about it that way, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, it's really important. And we have to remember that specifically with menopause is a life change. It's not an illness as such, but it can produce ill health,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So again, there is, I mean, recently there's been that article that's come out in the Lancet,
yes.
which is talking about how we're over medicalizing menopause.
Mm.
And I feel like it misses the point that no one is telling women they have to have any kind of treatment.
Yeah,
I think what we're doing as people who work in menopause is saying to women, menopause is a life change. It comes with with evidence-based complications of health, and we know that that's true. Estrogen is obviously protective for the heart and the bones. That's very well known. Um, but you don't have to have HRT. But if your symptoms are really bad and impacting your life and causing ill health, then it's an option for treatment.
yeah.
And again, in our communities, there is a lot of hesitancy towards HRT, and understood, because some people have had bad experiences. There's a lot of myths around HRT and breast cancer, where we know the facts are that actually the risk of increased risk of breast cancer with HRT is very small. And there's actually no evidence to show that any woman dies of breast cancer because she's had HRT. So so the evidence is actually showing that that risk is small, but it's the risk is heightened in our communities, and a lot of Black women fear HRT. But as a health professional, when I'm dealing with Black women who are menopausal, I'm talking through to about all the different options. As I said to you, menopause is a biopsychosocial interaction, and HRT is only a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
It's sometimes, if you're not considering all the other implications of psychology and the sociology and the social factors, it's like putting a plaster on a gaping wound,
Yeah.
because you have to consider all the other things. So we talk about physical activity, healthy diet, stress management, because for many of us in the Black community, we carry not only the stresses of life, but minority stress, which is existing in spaces that may be not so welcoming to us. And
I
so
know.
we have to
Yeah.
exert ourselves in that space. And then we carry that epigenetic changes of our ancestors who have dealt with minority stress. And that impacts our own expression of our health. So there's all of that in the background. There's
Yeah.
the fact that many of us in our communities are single moms or are caring for people in the older generation. So all of these things need to be acknowledged and validated as part of menopause care. It's not just about HRT. And so I think when judgments are made about what menopause specialists do, I'm like, have you started a clinic? Do you know what we're actually talking about? Particularly for those of us who serve diverse communities.
Yeah, yeah. I think because a lot of the noise is around medical hormone therapy, and a lot of it is around, certainly the media has taken hold of, oh, well, it's all got to be about an MHT or HT or HRT or whatever acronym you're using right now, and it's important that everybody is hearing that they have choices, and that and that taking medication is a very, very small part of that. And you're absolutely right, it has to go hand in hand with diet, boundaries, all sorts of things as well. How are you preparing yourself for, because what's changed in terms, let me finish this sentence. What's changed in terms of, the events that you've been through with your body? You have had to change things around, maybe your diet or maybe your exercise or that kind of thing. How are you managing your own body now, and how are you preparing yourself for menopause? It's a slightly different question from the one that I normally ask, because normally I'm speaking to people who are fully in perimenopause or are, postmenopausal. So I'm interested in basically, how do you look after yourself?
So it's really interesting because, I've had a lifelong struggle with my weight,
Mm.
but recently I've started intermittent fasting,
Hmm.
which I found to be really helpful and to be something that's sustainable for me.
Mm.
And obviously with my insulin resistance issues from the PCOS, it's been very helpful. And so that means that I eat for 8 hours in a day,
Mhm.
and for the remaining 16, most of which I'm sleeping,
Mhm.
I am not eating.
Mhm.
So that means that, and I front load it so that I'm not eating late.
Yeah.
So basically, the last thing I eat will be around 6 o'clock.
Mm.
Um, and that then means that, firstly, I'm sleeping a lot better. I'm doing physical activity. So we talk about the benefits of physical activity, but also the benefits of green spaces. So for my physical and mental health, I really try and make sure that I do brisk walks in the park at least 4 times a week, to really improve my physical and mental health. And it's been very, very helpful
Mm.
personally. Now, I would like to have more resistance exercise and do things like Pilates or yoga for my
Yeah.
flexibility. At the moment, it's quite challenging because of time, and I'm not making excuses. But it is something that I'm planning to add in
Yeah.
because I know the value, particularly as you get older, of these practices. So strength training for your muscles, and things that help with your balance, like yoga, and Pilates.
Yeah.
So I definitely aim to add those in. But at the moment, am really prioritizing also mental load management. And therefore, I listen to an audiobook, um, when I have a bit of spare time, just to
Yeah.
kind of travel in my mind to a different place. And that's really been helping, and then also it's just about sharing the load. So I'm grateful to have a partner where I can share a lot of the parenting load with. And then I get, some help with things at home, because I have to be honest, I'm not going to be able to do all of it.
Yeah.
So that delegation for help with things like cleaning,
Mm.
food prep, and all of that, is part of how I manage my mental load,
Yeah.
because, I have had burnout twice.
Wow.
So I've known what happens when you don't do that. And
Yeah.
so I'm intentional. And I have therapy on and off as I need it. And that's been really, really helpful as well,
Mm.
to have that as well. So those are the things that I do to try and be healthy and prepare myself for that stage of life. As I always say, the mental load a woman carries impacts her experience of the perimenopause and menopause. And so if you haven't managed your mental load entering into menopause, we often see this means a lot worse and more difficult symptoms and experience.
No, that's comprehensive, and it really sounds like, and this is what I want to hear. It sounds like you've really got a handle on guiltless um, delegation, because I think a lot of the time we feel like it's a badge of honor to be doing everything ourselves and to be busy all the time, and also that thing where we don't want to delegate because they won't do it the way that we do it, and the way that we do it is perfect. We have to allow people in our lives. I feel like I'm talking to myself as well. We have to
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm giving myself a little pep talk here. You know, we have to allow people in our lives to help us and also let them do it wrong so they can get it right. We weren't born experts, you know.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm loving that this is prep. I want more and more people who experience menopause who are nowhere near it to understand that it will be much, much easier when you reach perimenopause, when you reach menopause, if you've got your ducks in order, years before. Do you have a routine? And if you have a routine, do you care to share?
So I'm just picking up on what you said before I
Sure.
go into that about rest.
Mm,
So one of my things about us as Black women is that we haven't been taught to rest.
mm,
And we are rest is so important for our physical and mental health. And it's not just physical rest, but it's also mental rest.
yeah.
And rest is radical. I was listening to Afua Hirsch. I went for her book launch last year and she was talking about this, about how rest is something that as Black women we should aspire to, and not just aspire to, we should work towards actively to be able to rest. And
Yeah.
so I'm encouraging myself and all my Black women patients to think about rest as part of the process of well-being.
Yes, 100%.
And this image of the strong Black woman, it's not a bad image. We are strong,
Mm,
but we must also challenge that and think we need to also be vulnerable and able to rest, not just physically, but also mentally, and give ourselves that space to just exist. We
yeah.
don't have to always meet up to this perception of being strong and on it all the time.
Yeah.
So speaking of routine, so some people may find how I live my life to be weird. Um, but because obviously I've mentioned a few of the health challenges that I have, but I'm also very, very busy in
Yeah.
that I've got, apart from working as a doctor, I've also, I'm in the process of trying to open my own menopause clinic.
Mm,
I create health education, not just for women's health, but also for health equity. And I'm a wife and a mother, a
mm,
sister, and a friend.
mm,
So one of the things that I discovered was that I actually really enjoy my in-hours time.
mm,
So I actually do a lot of my work out of hours. So that means that like on a Monday morning,
mhm.
I'm having a lie-in. And I'm doing more stuff at home, maybe
Yeah,
having a few meetings, getting time to go to do my exercise.
yeah,
When I'm listening to a podcast that's helpful, getting my walk and stuff. So generally speaking, my mornings I serve, and then I work afternoons and evenings.
right.
And so it doesn't work for everyone, and it doesn't work in every profession.
It's your life.
Um, but what I mean, there are some days where I work in the day, but at least 2 or 3 days in the week,
Yeah.
I have a morning off.
Yeah.
Um, I tend to work weekends though. But just, at the in the week when other people are working, world is a lot quieter. I can go to the park and there's really no one else there but me. Those things are treasures for me. And it has really drastically improved my mental health. So I still work very hard. I still end up working about
Mm,
5 days a week.
mm.
But the way that I've worked it out means it doesn't feel as onerous and it feels a lot lighter and it feels much more manageable. And I feel like I have more balance in my life.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You're really curating your life in the way that works for you. And you're absolutely right. Some people will listen to this and think, but how? We have to be able to disrupt the norm. We have to be able to do what works for us. And I'm glad that you've been able to recognize that these are things that really benefit your mental well-being. Because once you benefit, then people around you benefit, your son benefits, your partner benefits, and so on and so forth. So thank you for sharing that, because someone will listen to that and go, oh, I do that, or I want to do that. That's aspirational. So thank you. Yeah, and quiet parks are great.
Like they are the best. They are the absolute best. And I
Yeah.
find myself actually looking at nature and being like, oh, the earthworms are out. Oh, the cherry blossoms are out, and noticing what's happening with the flowers as they change and the birds as they. It's amazing what you start to notice
Wonderful. It's
when it's
wonderful.
um when it's just you in the park.
Mm. And also, you have experience of burnout twice, you said. So, in
Yeah,
a sense, this is absolutely guaranteeing that you're not going there again, because you know yourself so
exactly.
well. You're laying these foundations so that burnout really is a thing of the past. So, congratulations to you on that as well. What
Thank you.
brings you joy?
Right. So me, like I'm a fun, like I love having fun. It's
Okay.
in my DNA. I come from a long line of people that love to have fun. In
Mhm.
Nigeria, we call it jaye, which means those who love to
Oh, I
live
love
life.
that.
Jaye, that is it. Life to be lived. My ancestors, my grandparents, my great grandparents, they were all people who they worked hard, don't get me wrong, and they
Yeah.
pushed, but they love life and live life to the max. So me and my siblings, we're all like, I like a bit of a dance. I like a nice meal where someone says, hello, can I take your coat? I'm like, yes, we're here. Uh, I love a cheeky cocktail, obviously not to excess, but I love a cheeky cocktail. I like the theater. I love London, and sometimes just even walking the streets of London and just seeing all the history. I'm a huge fan of history,
Okay.
because I think we have to know where we're coming from to know where we're going. So you can also find me watching a history documentary on the BBC iPlayer. I'm truly enjoying it. In fact, I actually got a lot of my family involved in. They must be wondering, wait, who are these black people that keep watching the history, history channel on iPlayer, and watching all but we have some fantastic black historians as well that share our stories, and there's some really fantastic stuff on the iPlayer actually on Black
Good.
history.
Good. We'll run there and have a look. What's your favorite cocktail? The minute you said cocktails, I think, what's your favorite cocktail? What's your go?
Right. I constantly like I, I constantly anything with rum. Let's put
Yes.
it that
Hey.
way. Anything with rum. So I'm low-key allergic to vodka. It's not like a real allergy, but
Yeah.
it's like I don't feel great with
Okay.
vodka. But rum. But rum. That's a different story. I feel like, there's a connection. Maybe it's the sugar cane that my ancestors may have
Maybe. Who
worked on.
knows? Who knows? That's so funny.
Because
Mine
I
is,
have part
yeah.
slave heritage through Sierra Leone
Okay.
and Freetown. So my great grandmother was a descendant of freed slaves through Freetown, and
Okay.
my on the other side, my great grandfather was a great grandfather was a returned slave from Brazil
Oh,
to
okay.
Lagos. Um, so I do have a bit of slave ancestry as well.
So that rum is important. It's almost like,
Yeah, I'm like, maybe
we're in
that's
our
the
ancestors
connection.
when we drink it. And you said you love dancing. Which tune instantly makes you want to dance? I want to add it to the Series 6 playlist.
Ooh, so I love me a bit of Afro beats.
Okay.
You, so that's a little bit boring, right?
No.
Because Afrobeats is everywhere right now.
Okay, good point.
There's a song called Booga, and it's like lo 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 lo. Oh, lo 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 lo. Booga. Ah, I'm there. I'm there. I'm
For
there.
people who are not watching this on YouTube, Itunu is dancing now. Dancing in her seat. I need you to be my doctor. We would have so much fun. It would go way beyond the 10 minutes.
That 10 minutes is so arbitrary. I find it very difficult. Or
Is
I
it?
think it's actually impossible to do a good menopause consultation if it's the first one in 10 minutes. Like it just doesn't work. You need more time.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I suspect that when you do start your menopause clinic, people will be rushing. There'll be queues outside the door, honestly. So, this has been a great conversation. I know we had a bumpy start, didn't we? But
Well, the
I'm
test
so
did test
glad.
us.
Yeah,
It
I'm
did test
so
us.
glad that we persevered. And I want to really, really, truly thank you for all of your, not just the knowledge, but also sharing your personal story, and the advice. And that brings me to the last question. So, what's one piece of advice you would give to any Black woman listening to us right now?
Be kind to yourself. Literally. I feel like we're very hard on ourselves as a group of women. Um, and also, we don't necessarily seek the support that we need. We're not very good at asking for help.
Yeah.
So that kindness to yourself is extend yourself the grace that you would a friend or a sister. Extend yourself that grace. We're not going to get everything perfect, and that's okay, right? No one is perfect. That's why we're human. And as Black women, we've been through the ringer, many of us. If we start to unpack our stories, it often is so we're like, whoa, I don't know how you've been through that. But often, even though we've been through a lot of challenges, we're still the life and soul of the party a lot of the time. And I don't know how that happens. I don't know how that happens. Like,
Yeah.
we bring joy a lot of
Yes.
the time. We
Yeah.
are joy,
Yeah.
despite how much we have gone through. But,
Mm.
we don't have to be switched on all the time. It's okay to be like, you know what, I'm having a day. Please leave me.
Yeah.
Leave me. And that's what it is about being kind to yourself, right? You
Yeah.
know? So I went there. I went into my Niger. Leave me.
I said, you know what? I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to say anything. But as the interview has progressed, you've gone more into your night. I'm loving it. You were like, leave me.
I beg.
Oh
Let
my
me be. Let me live.
God. Oh, dear
And I
me.
think it's that being kind to ourselves, right? Like as I say, the Niger is inside me. I was born and raised there, so literally, it's there. it's it's the core.
And it's wonderful. And you know what's wonderful? My face is actually aching now. You have absolutely lifted me, Itunu. Honestly, I am so glad that you said yes. You said yes to be a guest. And I know for a fact that many people listening to this from all demographics will take solace in and be inspired by your words. So thank you very much. If people want to reach out to you, which I suspect they will, where can they find you?
So you can find me on all socials at Dr. Showcare. So that's DrShoCares.
Mhm.
We also have the Health Equity and Advocacy Learning for Black people, which is at heal_courses, where we share information specifically for the Black community. And please join, get involved. We also have events that we would do from time to time to educate the Black community. In fact, well, it's not going to be in enough time, but we are really trying to push that self-advocacy that Karen was talking about, giving you skill sets and tools to be able to actually navigate the healthcare system to get the best outcomes out of it.
Brilliant. Well, I will put all of those in the show notes as well and make sure that I join. Thank you. Thank you, Itunu. It's been an absolute
Having me. It was so delightful. Karen, you're a star, like literally a bright superstar.
Oh my
And
goodness.
what you're doing for the Black community, for Black women is just amazing, you know? And
Thank you.
like, I feel privileged that you invited me. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. I really appreciate you. How was that for you? That was such a great conversation. Dr. Itunu really broke it down in terms of not just her mother's experience and how she herself is preparing for her menopause, which has become so important to her because of the BRCA gene, the breast cancer gene. But also, I loved her perspective from a doctor's point of view. And I love to speak to doctors who are interested in the whole human, not just talking about, you know, medicalizing or hormone therapy or medical therapy, but also talking about, what we can do about our lifestyle, how else we can help ourselves to get the best out of our menopause care. I really appreciated her perspective on that. What did you think of her routine? Um, I liked it. I love the fact that she just makes it work for her. And this is the thing about routines. People get themselves in a bit of a state around, I need to, I don't know, get up a certain time, 5 a.m. crew, shout out. I need to drink certain things. I need to do things at a certain time of the day. Um, Listen, your routine is your routine. And sometimes it's just one thing. If you know anything about my story, you will know that one of the most important things for me when I first left teaching, when I first realized that I was in the throes of menopause, by that time I was postmenopausal, I was 52, I hadn't had a period for a year, and I just left my long career behind. And I'd been diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And one of the things that I think helped to save me was creating a routine. But my routine was long. It was 2 or 3 hours long. I wasn't leaving the house anyway. But when it got to the point months and months later where I started to get better, it would take me ages to leave because I was so wedded to, I need to do my affirmations. I need to have my lemon tea. I have some now, by the way. I need to do an hour stretch. I need to, so many things I needed to do. But your routine evolves as you evolve. And I found over the years that, yes, I have some non negotiables. It actually is lemon tea, lemon and ginger tea. Um, but when I don't do certain things, the world doesn't end. And sometimes listening to your body, listening to what you really need means that you might not want to do, I don't know, an hour stretch or half an hour stretch. You might just want to do 5 minutes. You might not want to journal today, or you might not want to write 3 pages. You might only want want to write one sentence, my affirmations I do sometimes, I'm not so wedded to them anymore. My point is, your routine is your routine, and only you know what works for you. It might simply be standing at the kettle and watching it boil, looking out of the window, staring out at your view, whatever that might be, So I really appreciate Dr. Itunu talking about what works for her, because it wouldn't necessarily work for anybody else. And I'm glad that she was able to share that with us. And the last thing I want to talk about was the phrase that she used, culturally competent care. I am going to take that everywhere with me. If you understand one thing, if you take one thing from this, recognize that when you go to the doctors and you sit down and you talk about your innermost feelings and what's happening with you, it's really important that you are aware that you deserve culturally competent care. So seek it out wherever you can. And if it's not there, have that conversation with your doctors or with your practice, maybe by email. It doesn't have to be in person. It doesn't have to be awkward. It's just about speaking up and advocating for yourself. I think you can hear a little niggle in my throat, so it is time to rest my voice. As I said at the beginning, if you love this episode, if you love what we're doing at Menopause Whilst Black, think about leaving us a short review on the platform that you receive your listening pleasure. I love saying that. And also, if you know of someone who is interested in sponsoring us, who would like to sponsor a season or an episode, or who would like to reach out, they can contact me at thekarenarthur@mail.com or drop me a message so that we can have an informal chat before we move further. That's it from me. It's sunny here in East Sussex and outside is cooling me. So I'm going to go for a walk, get some fresh air in my lungs, get some daylight in my eyes. I hope that whatever you're doing today or tonight or this week is something that nourishes you. I hope that you're able to seek some joy intentionally. Put your SPF on. Hopefully the weather will match the sunshine and it'll get warmer soon. Drink your water and we'll speak soon. Take good care. Bye.